Former President Donald Trump wants his fans to take his words to heart, especially if they're violent. That's according to ABC News Jonathan Karl, who said the former president told him that he hopes that his supporters act on the things he says. During a conversation with Trump on August of 2019, after the mass shootings in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, former president was challenged for using essentially Nazi phrases against the press. In fact, here's the segment with Karl explaining further.
There were real concerns that there would be copycats, there would be more, and he was using this language, again, this language out of the Third Reich, of enemy of the people. And I said, aren't you concerned that people will take your words to heart? Aren't you concerned that they'll act on them? And without missing a beat, he said, I hope they take my words to heart, because I firmly believe the press is the enemy of the people, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know, maybe it's an inability to have any kind of empathy or understanding of the consequences of your words, but that is consistent. I mean, that is not new with Donald Trump.
Well, he's right about that. Definitely no empathy. But that phrase, the press is the enemy of the people, again, straight out of Nazi Germany. In fact, in his first speech at a beer hall in Munich on October 16th, Adolf Hitler demanded decisive action against who? The enemy of the people, which, of course, in his mind was the Jewish people, as well as, oh, look at that, attacking the newspaper, whom he demanded be replaced by propaganda outlets that would speak to the emotions of the German people. Kind of seems like a lot like our right-wing pro-Trump media, how that operates, on emotions. I know. Facts don't care about your feelings, except that right-wing media is all about feelings, mainly anger, disgust, betrayal, things like that. Now, fact-based media, a little bit different. That tends to be considered fake news and the enemy of the people by Donald Trump and a lot of MAGA supporters. So that's said. That's where that comes from, okay? Enemy of the people. That's why not a good thing to say. You say, I think this press is biased. I don't like it. Okay, that's fair. But when you say enemy of the people, that's, conjuring up something very, very specific. Now, what about Trump's words, though? Did he actually say anything that encourages violence directly, indirectly? Well, I just happen to have a bit of a list here of things that you could say, might be considered to be violent rhetoric. In July of 2017, during a speech to law enforcement officers in Long Island, New York, Trump told the cops to essentially be rough with the people that they were arresting. Quote, please don't be too nice. There's that other, I don't remember exactly when the date that was, but it was, again, dealing with another protester saying knock the crap out of them. In October of 2018, while speaking at a Montana campaign rally, Trump publicly praised Montana's then Representative Greg Gianforte, who is the state's current governor, by the way. Gianforte, well known for body slamming a reporter. In fact, Trump said, any guy that can do a body slam, he's my type. Oh, so you like people who body slam reporters. Great. On May of 2020, Trump used violent rhetoric when referring to protests in Minneapolis in the wake of George Floyd's murder, tweeting, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Okay, now that's, again, a phrase with a pretty racist history going back to police brutality against Black Americans in the 1960s. So anytime, there happens to be an issue with like natural disaster, right? For example, Hurricane Katrina, when you had Black residents that were scavenging for supplies, right? That's looting. But when white people do it, scavenging for supplies, again, in a hurricane, that's somehow okay. So that's the double standard that we have here, the racist standard that you have. Now, there's more. During the Black Lives Matter protests across the country, again, 93% peaceful, Trump threatened to use the military to send in the troops. In fact, he said, if a city or state refuses to take the actions necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them. Again, you can't actually deploy the military inside the United States. We do have the National Guard for that, but you can't actually deploy the military in U.S. borders. Okay, you can't do that. Now, there's more. In August of 2020, Trump expressed interest in sending the National Guard to Portland. Yes, to Portland to confront protesters per Vox, saying, we could fix Portland in, I would say, 45 minutes. September of 2020, Trump lauded law enforcement officers for killing Michael Forrest Reinl, a self-described Antifa member, suspected of killing a right-wing activist the previous month. He said, that's the way it has to be. There has to be retribution. No, there has to be justice. There has to be rule of law. There has to be innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. That's kind of how our system of laws are supposed to work. But that was in public, okay? Public statements, bad enough. In private, it got even worse. One example comes from former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, who's not a great guy, by the way. He claimed in his memoir that when demonstrators were, again, demonstrating around the White House following the death of George Floyd, Trump had asked him, quote, can't you just shoot them? Again, peaceful protesters, okay, outside of the White House. Can't you shoot them? But, you know, he didn't advocate for murdering them. Oh, no. He then asked, just shoot them in the legs or something. Ah, yes, just shoot people, but in the legs. Well, how magnanimous of you, sir. Not, wanting to have them murdered, but just shoot them in the legs. That'll teach them. What, for protesting? I mean, pretty clear, right? And by the way, also, during January 6th, he was not bothered by the fact that Trump fans were chanting, hang Mike Pence. I know. They weren't saying hang my pants. No, it was to hang Mike Pence, your vice president. And he said something to the effect of, they think he deserves it. So that's just a history. Some of the history of Trump's violent rhetoric that he has used. So I'm not at all surprised, that he would hope for his fans to take those words that he has said to heart. I'm not surprised, and you shouldn't be either.